Today's video, it's all about this wooden moulding box that was made in my workshop. Now I don't have many woodworking tools, so I had to get creative along the way. This is the timber that I'm going to use for the wooden moulding boxes, and where I get it from is on garbage day. I have a look around and see what people have thrown out, and they seem to throw out a fair bit of this decking timber, and it is a lot cheaper than actually going to buy it because it's very expensive timber to buy per metre. What makes me interested in it is it's got the treads, and it makes it very good for moulding boxes so the sand doesn't slip out. But this is for free, and everything for free is not real good. So I'll show you something. The timber is bent and warped. So if you put it over the other way like that, you go through there, you can see it's all bent. So what I've got to do is look for another piece that's a bit straighter than that. I've tried to put weights on it and straighten it, it's no good, so I'll have to try something else. This is the power saw I'll be using. I've already cut two pieces and I checked them with a square, and there's a problem with them. I'll show you what the problem is. Where you can adjust your angle there, it's not correct. So what I've done, I've adjusted it so it's reasonably accurate, but what I'll have to do, I'll have to put them in the milling machine to trim it all up and try and get a bit more square. Unfortunately I haven't got a table saw, so I usually make do with what I've got. This is how I get my timber reasonably square. I put a square in here and use a clamp. Now, only thing I've got to be careful of with the clamp, it's got to be horizontal, that wing nut. If it's up like that, it hits you underneath the motor and jerks you, and you have a really terrible cut. This is how I correct my errors from the power saw. When I cut the first pieces, they were out of square, so I clamp it in my milling machine. There's the other clamp. And there is the milling cutter. Now what I didn't show you is I'll cut them so the grippy parts are facing each other. That's how they'll sit in the moulding box, and when you trim them together like that, it fits a lot better. So that's how I correct this side. So what I've got to do, turn it round. It's a bit hard to see, but that clamp there I'm going to have to put over to here so I can mill the other side. So I've got the other side clamped up, and you can see just there, I was very sloppy, made this a little bit longer, so it's a good opportunity to trim that up. But the main thing is these two pieces are slightly longer than the other two pieces, so you could say either for the top or the bottom box. So what I've got to do is I've got to trim them so they're exactly the same length, these two as the other two. No matter how hard I seem to try, I can't get them exactly the same, so there's a perfect opportunity to do that. So that was the final cut. Now all four pieces should be very close to matching the same size. This is how I plan to put it together. These are the two pieces that I milled in the milling machine, and you'll see there's a mark somewhere. There it is there. And there's the other mark there. As you can see, they're facing each other. So I'll put these a bit closer together. Now the idea is when I mill them is to keep these, well, not exactly parallel, but if they're out, they're either that way, that way, that way, or that way. A little bit of slope doesn't matter because you've got your tread in there. Years ago, when I first started making moulding boxes, a friend of mine who was a carpenter was watching me and I was having a lot of trouble. Anyway, he said, if you nail really close to the edge like that, pre-drill the holes first and that'll stop the wood from splitting. The other tip he gave me was with the nails, take the sharp edge off the end. That will also stop the nail from splitting the timber. So that's what I've done. So this is the situation so far. As you can see, even though I pre-drilled the rotten holes, it's still cracked in one place. But even worse, have a look down there. Broke away, so I had to make a complete new side. And then I thought, to avoid that problem again, I'll just drill those holes a small amount so it won't crack, and it was successful. Back when I started metal casting, I was shown this idea. You've probably all seen it. Use a wooden wedge, but what I don't like about it, you'll see as you get out to here, you get a lot of play. It's not a real good way to lift the box out and expect the mould to stay in one piece. So this is what I used. I never liked that idea, but I used this. This was a little bit better, but always used to jam. So I was shown by someone else a really good idea. You see the nail? It's got a rounded head on it, and when you drop that into the hole, the nail can flex a little bit, and if you've got a bit of irregularities, it'll still hold in the same position all the way out, but the nail will bend a bit and the box generally does not jam. I've pre-drilled the holes for the alignment dowels, but before I can put the pins in or the nails, I need to screw this self-tapper in. And what that self-tapper does, it actually marks on the other side, on the other box, where the location of the hole's got to be. I'm now ready to mark the top box to the bottom box. Before I do, I've made a mark in here, so this is the final alignment mark, so you know the box is the right way around. So all I do with it is I just go and get a hammer and go and give it a tap like that, and it'll make a mark. So now I know where the hole's got to be. All I use is a centre punch, and it gives me the target where to go. That'll make sure the drill doesn't wander. And now all I have to do is hit the nail or the alignment pin to a predetermined depth. That's one side done. I've already had a go at trial closing of the box and it's just a little bit too tight. So what's happened, the nail has bent slightly, so you move it just a little bit inwards with the hammer, give it a tap, and this is why I like this method so much, because you can bash the nails in and if they're crooked, all you do is just bend them straight again and they work really well. I've given the nail a bit of a tap and now it's a lot looser boxes to lift off. And how I can tell when they're too tight is when I lift them up, the bottom box tends to stick to the top one. It's probably a bit too tight. So here we go. It's just the way I like them. So remember when I said the pins are offset? Well, have a look. I put the box 180 degrees out. There's an alignment mark there and there's one not there. So as you can see, the box is not aligned and I can physically tell that I'll put it on back to front. But also, see what happened when I didn't pre-drill the hole there? It cracked. This timber is very prone to cracking if you don't pre-drill the holes. This is the very last thing I've had to do with the box. I've put two handles on. There's one on here and one up top, which you can't see. But I couldn't find these shorter nails, so I just used the angle grinder, chopped them off below the surface there, so you don't push into them with your fingers, a bit of a safety hazard. This is what the box looks like when it's completed. Done.